No matter how dark it is and how bad it seems, there is hope. There is light at the end of the tunnel. You might not be able to see it right now, but always know there is a solution to your challenge or problem.
Step into the world of success with your brand amplified, the ultimate podcast designed to unravel the intricacies of thriving businesses. I'm your host, Annika Jackson, and I'm on a mission to uncover the stories, strategies, and secrets that have propelled entrepreneurs and business leaders to success. I am thrilled to have David Greer on the show today. David, I was, saying my apologies before we jumped on because we've had to reschedule several times, but it is always the right time. And so I'm really excited that you're here, going to share your wisdom and your business acumen with us today.
Thanks so much. I've been really looking forward to this. And I had a long listen to one of your podcasts just before I came on. So I kind of feel like I'm connected a little bit to you, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah. Well, now we have some new connections. My daughter wants to go to your alma mater. I'm maybe also applying there for a PhD program. And we love Vancouver. So what a beautiful place to be in. You've had a really industrious journey in many organizations. You've been an entrepreneur for 40 years. And I love the start of your story. So I don't want to share it for you. I'd love for you to talk about what were you doing in your early 20s? How did you get into that field? And then all of the amazing things that you did, not just in the pursuit of business, but also in life.
Sure. So I'll give you the whole summary from 22 to present day in a quick form. But yeah, well, I knew around grade 9 that I wanted to take business and computers and put it together. And I just had this very early, and I was a technical geek, like even in high school. So, I was getting my computer science degree, and I'd found a part-time job for the cable company in Vancouver, which at that time was the largest cable company in North America, and was using a brand new mini computer system from Hewlett Packard, which was groundbreaking. A lot of my early career, I was using brand new stuff and the most advanced things in the world, and I had no idea. Like, I was just falling into it. And, I met a consultant who then in fourth year hired me as the first employee in his new software startup, which is named Robel for the two founders, Robert and Annabelle. Wow. And it still Googles well today because it's a made up name. And a condition of my employment was I had to write an abstract and submit a paper submission to the Hewlett Packard International User Group meeting. And that abstract was accepted. So then I had to write the paper. And in the winter term of my fourth year, I went to all my profs and said, I'm not going to be here for the next week because I flew to San Jose and gave my first technical paper. I remember standing on the edge of the stage being introduced and how freaking scared I was to do. And there's probably 60 or 70 people in the audience.
Yeah.
And, I'm 22 years old and I'm standing up on the San Jose convention floor telling a bunch of other computer geeks about this cool software and what it can do for them. And it was literally decades later before I found out that's like the essence of marketing and sales. Yeah. Like I was just doing my stuff.
Stuff that you were really passionate about. So you had
yes.
obviously.
Yeah. And my former partner, Bob Green, and I, we became like global gurus in this particular computer system. And we wrote a paper every year each, either technical or management focused, because then we learned a lot about software development. Like at the end of my tenure, I was managing about 1 million lines of production code, like releases. So had some ideas about how to manage software process and software engineering. It turns out I knew a lot about product marketing, although it was years later till I found out that's what it's called, because I just did it, right? And so 10 years in, over 20 years, Bob and I built it into a global powerhouse and created belief in this obscure Vancouver-based software company you were going to trust your whole business to. And as I say, we created that belief by going out and giving these presentations and knowing our stuff. Like we really, really knew our stuff. But we came to the end of that. So 10 years in, I bought out Annabelle and I became partners with Bob. And 20 years in, the HP 3000 that we specialized in had been out for like 25, 27 years, one of the longest tenure run of any mini computer platform. We knew the end was sooner or later, maybe sooner. And, Bob wanted to downsize the business drastically and milk the customers until the last one was gone and turn out the lights. And I'm like, we built this incredible team. We have a lot of outside evidence that they could do things that other companies couldn't, want to take more risk and a little more money and move it in new directions. And they're both were viable strategies. They weren't complementary
Right.
strategies. And we had a very, very tough, emotional, very ugly 6 months. I only had one disagreement with Bob in 20 years, but it was a doozy and it ended in divorce. So he bought me out. And there I am on the street in 2001. I haven't noticed this thing called the dot-com meltdown. So I'm busy trying to chase deals with technology friends of mine until someone smarter than me sat me down, looked me in the eye and said, David, do you need to work again right away? And I'm like, no, I've got a pretty good check in my jeans. I'm not done, but I don't need to work right away. And she said, this simple statement, your kids will never be 11, 9, and 5 again. And I can still, as I talk to you today, feel myself in that chair and feel that aha moment, of like I'm missing the boat here, so to speak, especially when I tell you the next thing we did. So we commissioned a sailboat in the south of France and we took I didn't mean for that pun, but it came out. And we homeschooled our 3 children for 2 years while sailing more than 5,000 miles, about 10,000 kilometers in the Mediterranean basin.
What a special memory and special time together.
It is and was an amazing legacy we have as a family. And I've been commenting lately on some LinkedIn posts talking about like post-entrepreneur, post-exit experiences. And I think that's something that is very little talked about and is something that's really important. And for me, like having such a massive project to go work on for 2 years, like that's what got me through the emotional, like, because a lot of the people I'd worked with for 10, 15 or more years all got fired. Like, so there was like, but I was halfway around the world, I only heard about it anecdotally and I had something bigger I was way focused on. So, that really helped my exit transition.
I can imagine.
So then,
yeah.
don't think you can build a business and be a business owner without, some of your meaning and your ego and who you are as a human being is wrapped in that. And when you sell it and then you're out of it, like, so what replaces that? And what does it mean to you? And I think it's better if we think about these things before we exit rather than trying to catch up afterwards. It's like some of my clients are like, I want to exit. And I'm like, why do you want to exit? Oh, well, because I don't like this part of the business and I don't like this. Well, why don't we re-engineer the business so we take out the parts you don't like? Because you're going to come out of the business, you're still going to have all the energy. You're going to need to torque against something.
Exactly.
And you might have a really hard time figuring out what to go torque against. And in my experience, like what I found when I came back from the med was I had too much energy and not enough stuff I was working against, which I'll tell you about in a second. And, it would come out with my children or my spouse or like the energy had to go somewhere.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So I come back, I become an angel investor. I look at 100 deals a year. I invest in kind of one a year, 1.5 a year. I'm working as a director. I'm working for options. After about 3 or 4 years of that, I hadn't realized how completely unfulfilling that was so an event happened. I took one of my young startup CEOs to an event with Vern Harnish. So Vern Harnish is famous for his one-page strategic plan and the book Scaling Up and the Rockefeller Habits. And Vern actually taught that course that day. And I didn't know much about him. I just knew so many of my entrepreneurial friends in Vancouver swore about this one-page plan. So I went to help this company I was trying to help build, as an angel investor and a director. And I did have a breakthrough moment listening to Vern. But what really happened was the back of the room, 10:30 in the morning, coffee break, there's 2 coaches. And I go talk to 2 of them. I go talk to both of them. And one of them makes me more uncomfortable than I've been in 4 or 5 years. I literally have tears the corner of my eyes. Wow. In a room with 100 peers. And I think Kevin just said that coach was an amazing guy, Kevin Lawrence. And I think he asked me a simple question, which is, there's 100 entrepreneurs in this room, and I know almost all of them could use your help. And, I spent 3 years like trying to figure out how to help someone and get involved in and it turns out, there was a bunch of things that were in the way of that. which Kevin helped me with. So I took Kevin's card and I put it beside my desk. And about once a week, I'd look at that card next to my phone and I'd think about calling Kevin, and the phone would weigh easily 10,000 pounds. Like, I didn't know what it would mean to hire him. So, anyways, that happened for about 3 weeks in a row. And then Kevin called me
There you go.
and he said, "Hey, do you remember me from the Vern Harnish event?" And I said, "Yeah, I did. I do." I didn't say, "I haven't thought about much else the last 3 weeks."
Yeah.
Thanks for calling. And I hired him. And so on my 50th birthday, August 9th, 2007, we had our first coaching session. And Kevin is my kind of guy, which is all in or all out. So the first coaching session at that time with Kevin, when you became a one-on-one client with him, was 2 8-hour days.
Okay. Quite a commitment and quite
All in.
a very vulnerable state, I can imagine as well.
Yeah. So I worked with Kevin for 9 years, but after about 18 months, we had reestablished my career. We just kind of got me working up with, I got involved in another kind of restart of a startup with 2 other ex-CEOs. So we had 3 ex-CEOs trying to work together. It was interesting time.
Say the least.
Yeah. And we had cleared like all the clutter off the desk and off the table until the elephant in the room was the only thing left. And on January 26, 2009, about 10:30 at night, I put down my last beer, and the way I worked with Kevin was the day before I'd write him an email with some successes and the topic for our coaching call. And I pressed send on an email that said the topic for our coaching call is my drinking. And the next afternoon, we had a coaching call, and I admitted to Kevin I had a drinking problem. And, I'd been a daily drinker for at least 20 years, probably more than that. And I'd been an alcoholic for at least 20 years. And I had been in denial for pretty much all of that time. And so I spilled out my biggest secret. And I also knew I'd worked with Kevin enough and I had enough of a trust relationship with Kevin that I knew he'd never let me off the hook. So I didn't know what it would look like, but I knew once I went through the door, it was one way, because no matter what, Kevin was always going to bring me back to that issue. So anyways, in his personal life, in summers around campfires, he had met someone in 12-step recovery with 20 years of sobriety. Kevin doesn't have a drinking problem, but he's an infinitely curious guy. So he had spent a lot of time talking to this individual about the program, how it works, how he got in. So he had the tools to help me. And he asked me to commit to go to a 12-step meeting, but this was a Tuesday, January 27th, 2009. He asked me to commit to go to a meeting by that Friday, which I did, commit to that. And then later that afternoon, I knew I had a networking technology event downtown that ended at 8 o'clock. Before I left, I went online and I looked for 12-step meetings. And lo and behold, at 8:30, a quarter of a block off the road I'd be driving down to go home, there would be a meeting. So I went to the event, and then I drove to the meeting, and I walked in and walked upstairs. And I think it was probably years and years before I ever admitted how scared I was that day. I mean, you have to understand, as an alcoholic, I literally could not imagine what the next day was going to look like without having wine with dinner or not picking up a drink. And by the time I got to the meeting, I wasn't even 24 hours sober, because I'd put down the last beer 10:30 the night before, and now it's 8:15. And, I kind of sat in the middle of the edge of a row, so, I could escape if I need to. And at that time in that meeting, about 3/4 of the way through, the chairperson asked, "Is there anyone new to our program that'd like to stand and introduce themselves?" And I sat on my hands, I don't know, 20 seconds, 25 seconds. And then I stood up and I said, "I'm David, I'm an alcoholic." And honestly, I don't think in that moment I really knew what I was admitting my truth. I don't think I really knew that at the time.
Right.
I didn't really know exactly what that meant. But I mean, everyone else in the whole meeting had been standing up and introducing themselves that way. So, it had been modeled. And about a month later, I made that my home group. And a few months ago, I took my 16-year cake at that same group.
Congratulations.
And thank you very much. And when I took my cake, I think there were 3 people in the room who were there the night that I walked in. And I remember me being at my first meeting, which is really something incredibly special to have have individuals who've witnessed my whole sobriety. Coach Kevin came this year as well. I mean, I invite him every year, but oftentimes he's too busy and he can't make it. But he was there this year, which also made it very special. So that's part of my journey and part of why now I'm an entrepreneurial coach, but I specialize in working with entrepreneurs that are challenged with alcoholism and addiction because I've been a practicing alcoholic and building a business, and I've been in recovery. And, my work continued with Kevin. I did a couple of more senior executive gigs, kind of VP of marketing and sales. I'm always working with a CEO/entrepreneur that was a friend of mine, and behind the scenes, like working on strategy as well. And then my last gig, I had worked for 3 years as VP of marketing of a telematics company here in Vancouver. Telematics are devices you bolt to a car or a truck and track them in real time. And I came out of that gig and I realized in my mid-50s I'd worked as hard as I'd ever worked in my entire career. And I decided I did not need to prove to anyone that I can work hard. And I also decided that I wanted to give to other entrepreneurs the gifts that Kevin had given to me. And so I wrote my book, Wind in Your Sails, and I launched my coaching and facilitation practice, which was 10 years ago now. And so that's what I've been doing up to the present.
So many inflection points there. And, having gone through all the success that you did, it has to be, number one, really vulnerable to admit that you are still flawed human, and that there is still something holding you back from being the very best you that you could be for your family, for people you worked with, for your friends, for your community. I have been alcoholic or substance abuser adjacent for in almost all of my relationships. And it was a repeating pattern that I didn't realize, from the time I was a teenager even until my early 40s. And then I finally met with somebody and was like, oh, this is my pattern. I want to, because I want to care for people and I want to give them everything. And that just enables people. And so I've had, I'm really teary over here from hearing your story. And I'm very
Thank you for sharing
you
that.
shared it. So
yeah, and thank you for sharing your experience, because it's as tough for the person on the other side, I believe, as it is for those of us that are practicing, are out there.
Yeah, it is what led to my divorce. So that's a whole other topic from their time. But I think you going through this experience and having to rebuild and admit this to people and really look at who you are on the inside, not just your external business success, but something that changed and sparked you to now give back in so many rich ways. Because I do think this is an issue a lot of high performers have. You have to have an outlet, right? You have to have somewhere to release all the energy, the disappointments, the successes, everything else that goes on in your daily lives. And
I mean, medically, we know that 10% of the people are alcoholic. Like that's from the National Institute of Health in the United States. That's from the equivalent organization in Canada. So like, those are just the numbers of people who have alcohol use disorder. I mean, sadly, the vast majority won't get help.
Yeah.
Right. So I've tried to find out whether entrepreneurs are more susceptible or not, and there's no data on that. But even if we say it's 10%, like that's a heck of a lot of people.
It is.
And,
it is.
Part of why I come on podcasts like yours, and part of what I still experience. So one is to reduce the stigmatism around alcoholism, because, even my spouse, it's like, I'm not a truck driver. I'm not a logger. I don't get in fights in the bar. So she can't believe I'm an alcoholic. Or, you're not on the wrong side of the tracks and wearing a trench coat and drinking out of a brown paper bag. Well, that's maybe 0.1 of 1% of people who are alcoholics. Alcoholics look like you. They look like me. They look like your listeners. Like there is unbelievable number of high-performing alcoholics. It's part of how we high perform, right? It was rocket fuel. It was to clobber over any feelings I might have of inadequacy or tiredness. Like, okay, let's just pour the booze on, and to make the lows not so low and the highs higher. But on the outside, like, I didn't get so drunk that I was stumbling or I was slurring my words.
Or high performing.
In fact, I would have thought that was a loss of control, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that would actually work against me. And actually, if that happened to me, and maybe I would have realized I was an alcoholic sooner, but it didn't. And I did when I did. The universe meant for me to meet Kevin, and the universe meant for me to get sober on January 27th, 2009.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And to then realize that this was another area you can help in. It wasn't just by being an angel investor, picking a company or two every year, starting companies with other ex-CEOs and trying to balance all the egos in the room. And, it was so that you could find something that you were truly passionate about, where you are working with high performing people. You understand what it takes every day to operate in their businesses, but also how you can help them be better humans at the same time.
yeah, and Coach Kevin in his book, Your Oxygen Mask First, like I use his model a lot in my coaching. So he talks about like taking your life in three buckets, which is your business, and then like your life, which is simply your relationships and your family. And then in the middle is this thing called self. And my experience is high performers are super passionate about their business. They're super passionate about their life, and they are very good at squeezing themselves out in that middle. And Kevin's assertion is we need to proactively put in our as we plan a quarter for our business and maybe plan a quarter for our life, we need to be as good about planning a quarter for ourselves. Like whatever that ritual or thing is that builds our resiliency, to make sure we carve out time for that. And I like it to a pendulum. If we are completely selfless, we're at one end of the pendulum. And if we only looked after ourselves, we'd be selfish and we'd be at the other end. And the truth is, we swing back and forth, but high performers tend to swing more to the selfless,
Mm.
right? And also, like as high performers, when we do look after ourselves, it's not uncommon, including having happened to me, where those close to us around us will say, well, you're being so selfish. Well, yeah. And like when I first started doing this, like that would stop me from actually doing the thing that would, it was being selfish.
Yeah.
But I wasn't okay, and I'm now like, you're right. I'm being 100% selfish and I'm going to do this because I'm worth it. And if I don't do it, I won't be here for you, dear, or so and so. Or like the truth is, if we don't build our own resiliency, then we can't be there for these other parts of our life. Just like, should I pick up a drink, heaven forbid, and go back to drinking, like, then there'll be nothing of me to give to any other aspect of my life.
Exactly.
Which is why, I still, in some ways, it's a real gift. Like I really work with entrepreneurs to figure out what's the number one thing you need to work on. Well, every day when I get up,
Yeah.
the number one thing I need to do today is stay sober today. And it's that simple and that hard.
Yeah.
Right. But it's the single biggest achievement of my life. But every day I have to achieve it again. I don't get to rest on my laurels for what I did yesterday. Today's a new day. And my belief is if I pick up a drink, I will die a very early death very soon. And so I do treat it as a life and death decision. I know I have another drunk in me. I have no idea if I have another recovery in me. And I don't want to test that.
Yeah.
That's why, I treat it as a serious mental health disease that it is.
How did you approach being vulnerable enough to share your brand, your true essence, to get clients into your business? Because it's a profound shift, right? From people just being able to look up to you and think of you as the person who's going to invest in their company, perhaps, to, hey, this is really what my mission is. This is really where I need to be living, and this is how I can help you.
So after 9 years, Kevin stopped doing one-on-one coaching, and he segued me to his coach, Nan O'Connor,
Ah,
from Atlanta, master certified coach and a wonderful human being, just like Kevin. And I've worked with Nan now for 7.5 years. We actually had a double coaching call yesterday, which was pretty good. And what happened was, so when I started working with Nan, I was already sober and had been sober actually for a while. And then over a period of quite a few years even, Nan just kept reflecting back to me that when we got onto the conversation about my recovery, like my energy, like there was a purity in how I showed up on the call with her.
wow.
And any question she asked me, I almost always had an answer. Any question she asked me around like drinking
Yeah.
sobriety is what I mean. And so she just kept, like a good coach, nudging me and reflecting and holding up the mirror and reflecting it back until about maybe 4 years, 3 years, 4 years ago, I just decided, okay, it's time. And I recorded a video that really talked about my journey, which is still on my YouTube channel. And I did a series of videos about being a sober business person and like some of the challenges that is, I think, for any person that's sober, but I think we see it more when we're entrepreneurs or business owners. And I just started putting it out there, and I put it out kind of tentatively. It probably took me another year and a half, 2 years to put it on the homepage of my website. So yeah, like being this vulnerable is still hard. And then, about 3 years ago, I decided to start coming on podcasts like yours. It was really, well, I have a few goals, but my mission is to share my experience, strength, and hope in business and in recovery. So that's my primary mission and why I come on podcasts like you. And I'm very grateful and, for the kindness of having people who are willing to have me on and have my story be shared. And then, as I've done more and more podcasts and shared it more and more and being more public about it, well, then like now I'm very comfortable. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
still very vulnerable, but it is who it is, and it is my story. It's who, being an alcoholic is just, I'm 6'2". I have size 12 feet. I'm an alcoholic. Like
Yeah.
it's
But
just who I am.
but these are the things we don't always talk about, right? People
Absolutely not.
people would expect you to come on a podcast and talk about business success and how you grew your company and la di da and how you choose to invest in as an angel investor. But this is really these are the stories that are the most important to me because yes, people who listen to the podcast have a lot of business success. Some of them have been in business for 10, 20 years, have a great brick and mortar, maybe are looking at expansion. Some have sold and exited companies for hundreds of millions of dollars, right? And helped build those businesses up to $1 billion. And it's only by sharing our real stories and vulnerabilities that we find these connections and can really figure out what we have to offer to other people and how we can, somebody listening to this conversation right now is completely relating. I mean, not just one person, but multiple someone's, right? Are relating to one side or other of the story and seeing themselves in it and figuring out, okay, do I need to get help? Or,
Yeah.
oh, I'm in a position to help other people. Do I need to reach out to David? So
And here's the deal. So in all those stories you just shared, and even like, I gave the 50,000-foot view as a development of Robel. There were a lot of zigs and zags, right? So I really want listeners to know too, that in any successful business, there is like, you see the surface part and you kind of see the end thing that happened. Like, oh, they built it and they were really successful. That's not how it goes. It's a big series of up and downs and lows and highs and challenges. And I think that gets missed because it's so often just the pleasant, happy parts of the story get told. And there's so much more behind the scenes. So like if you're challenged by your business, even not with alcoholism or addiction, but just like you're really, really challenged in your business today, well, welcome. You're being an entrepreneur. That's that goes with the territory.
and I haven't been having a lot of conversations with people who work as AI founders, but they're very interested in making sure that we're staying very human. And that's something I think we need these connections. We see it in the marketplace with our consumers. They want to know what our values are, who's the person behind the brand. They don't just want to buy things, especially when you think about, I don't want to bring politics into it, but when you think about different viewpoints and what companies align with my values and what do I want to support versus what companies do I not want to support anymore with my dollars, no matter what side or spectrum you're on. And so I think that has to ring true with us as well as entrepreneurs and sharing and being able to be vulnerable like you have and say, yeah, I've had a lot of success, but I also have these points and I'm here to help you.
And the stories around where they didn't compromise their values, even though it felt at the time that was like the short circuit to like solve their current business challenge or get to the next customer. But it's like, they have certain principles they weren't willing to violate. And I have a lot of respect for people who hold true to their values while they're building their business.
Hmm. So you also mentioned writing a book, and
Yes.
you wrote this book before you admitted that you were an alcoholic and started, or in the
No,
process of, or
2009, I wrote the book 2015. No, I was about 5 or 6 years sober, but I wasn't yet ready to talk publicly about my sobriety.
yeah.
So I interviewed like over 45 entrepreneurs and sales and marketing leaders for the book. And so it had, at that time, my 25, 30 years of experience in business. Plus, I finished every chapter with a case study of one of the entrepreneurs I interviewed. So a third of the content of the book is other people's stories. And then it's kind of a quarter, how you think about your business, and three-quarters like practical ways you apply it. Right. And, the goal of the entrepreneurs I interviewed and me was like, we fell into a lot of potholes, and you are welcome to fall into the same potholes if you like. But
Or
maybe you could read the book or just read the parts that apply to your business right now and avoid some of the potholes that we fell into. There's lots more. You'll fall into your own, but maybe you don't have to fall into all the ones that we did.
yeah, yeah,
So
so
that's
important.
kind of the philosophy. And it really targeted owner founders who've just had one business. And in my experience, like I have 10, I call strategies or 10 functional areas of the business. And my experience is most owner founders are really, really awesome at three or four.
Yeah.
They're pretty good at another three or four, and there's probably two they've never heard of. So it's like trying to, expand their mind around those ones maybe they're not quite as good at, which I'm not. And I believe my coaching philosophy is we play to our strengths. But sometimes the hard part is we need to actually know what we're weak in to
Exactly.
know what we need to go backfill and hire people or build process or right. So we can still play with our strengths, but if that part of the business is weak, then it'll hold us back.
100%. Oh, what does life look like for you today with coaching, with advising? You're still investing.
Yeah, I'm not doing as much investing, although I'm still heavily invested in a sidecar angel fund that's been very successful here in Vancouver. Focused much more just on my coaching facilitation work. It turns out the not working hard piece, yeah, it turns out that's really hard. Like, I have this amazing taskmaster spirit, which has let me get a lot of stuff done in life.
Right.
And it still likes to be, well, it likes to sneak up on me and like I now have way more awareness around it and still sneaks up on me. Like it's really deeply, deeply embedded in me. So, I try and work no more than 20 hours a week in the weeks that I'm working and take 12 weeks off a year. So that's kind of the personal boundary. I can tell you May and June this year, I did okay in May. I got away 3 weeks on the boat and I only worked Tuesdays.
Okay.
So the 3 weeks that I was away, but June and into July has been crazy. And almost all of my own making. Like it's just, instead of putting off a bunch of podcast interviews, I put them into my calendar. But that makes more podcasts come out. And I do a lot of work to promote them. I do have some help on that, but a lot of it still is up to me. But to me, it's equally important that I promote and get the message out of your podcast because that's how it gets shared. And that's how my message gets shared, which is how I live my mission. So it is really important work. And then, I've got two grandkids. This weekend, we've got two grandkids and two granddogs.
Oh,
Uh, oh,
beautiful.
so it'll be a busy weekend.
Yeah.
And last weekend we were out sailing with our middle son and daughter-in-law and their dog, and they want to learn how to sail our sailboat. They'll take it on their own. So I did a whole bunch of teaching around that with them, which is also really fulfilling. Yeah, and so I do these things like going sailing or doing traveling with Carol Lee that builds my resiliency and, refills my bucket. I have a facilitation Monday and then a couple more coming up because it's the end of the quarter, my coaching clients. So, and, between grandkids and other things that we do as a couple, we still lead a pretty busy, full life,
Yeah.
which I'm very fortunate about. And I'm super excited because, I mean, this will come out probably afterwards, but every 5 years, the biggest 12-step recovery group for alcoholics hosts a convention, and only once every 5 years, and it's in Vancouver.
Nice.
And I'm doing a bunch of volunteering, and I'm going to be attending a lot of stuff. And I'm actually going to live on my sailboat downtown in a marina
Ooh,
during the whole thing so I can walk to everything.
fantastic. It sounds like you have been able, even though you've kept your life very full, you've been able to figure out how to have a little more balance between personal, professional, and spending that valuable time with family, which I think is the most important thing.
Yes.
Yeah. So what does it look like when you do work with clients these days? Have you ever had to say, oh, you're not going to be a really good fit for me?
So my process, so I want your listeners to know, like I offer a free 1 hour coaching call to anyone that's challenged in business or with alcoholism or addiction. You just visit my website, which is easy to find. Top left corner is my phone number and my email address. So just reach out. I had a referral from one of my existing clients, talked to a woman in Toronto this week, and, it was a coaching call and I helped her move ahead. And as I told her, like, I want her to go talk to other coaches.
Hmm.
And if she feels like I'm the best fit for her,
Yeah.
great. And if one of these other people feels like the best fit for her, great. Like, I only want to work with people who want to work with me and vice versa. So sometimes I do that hour introductory call and I don't tell you about my rates, and I don't tell you anything that would move the conversation forward to hiring me as your coach, because I'm like,
There's not the connection. Yeah.
I don't think the two of us are going to get along too well here.
Oh,
So
no.
I've definitely had that happen more than once. And then I do a lot of facilitation work around strategic planning using this Vern Harnish stuff, the 1-page plan. And that's a different kind of engagement because it means the entrepreneur has to agree that he or she and their senior leadership team meet with me for 2 days for an annual planning and then 1 day a quarter. So that's 5 days investment, and they need to commit to a year. So it's both an investment, a big investment in both money and time. But if you don't commit to the process, it doesn't work. Like, to just do it once, I mean, you get clarity, things will improve, you'll have better alignment, but it's the process of doing it over time that really creates the results. And Monday, I'm working with my longest term facilitation client. We've worked for 9 years. And they're a PE group. And when I started, they had $20 million under management. And today they have 200 million. And, I'm not claiming that as my success. It's their success. It's their business. They had to do all the work. But I've been involved in 5 days of planning a year for the last 9 years.
But that also tells everybody who's listening, myself as well, that even those 5 days a year have that much impact. As long as you do the work in between, and you just try to improve.
Exactly.
You try to improve a little bit at a time. But again, you have to be highly motivated to spend the money, to, get your expertise, but then also to make sure that you're investing in your teams and in your businesses and in yourselves.
And doing some of the things that someone like me suggests, like, which again, all comes from Vern Harnish. Like, there's this whole thing about meeting rhythm, and outside of the quarterly planning, then there's a weekly rhythm, a daily rhythm. And like, they're highly proven techniques for getting you to be a high growth, high performing business. But you still got to be willing to try them out and actually do them.
Yeah, and not get distracted by the other shiny objects that are out there, or the other things that everybody else is doing.
Yeah, I do so much work around shiny red ball. But there's a shiny red ball. Well, at the start of the year, you told me this was the 5 things you wanted to do in your business, and this is why you wanted to go here, and this is why you're focusing on this. Like, okay, if you want to go chase that shiny red ball, what are you going to give up in the plan that you told me for your business?
Exactly.
And usually they go, oh no, that is the right plan. It is a shiny red ball. I should put it aside and go stick with what it was that, what I really want to get.
Right. Exactly.
But that's why we're entrepreneurs. Like, if shiny red balls didn't attract us, we wouldn't become entrepreneurs in the first place.
True. That, and maybe also realizing that we're not very employable. Right?
We're not good. Yeah.
So.
My last executive gig was the first time I'd been an employee in, I don't know, 20 years or more. And it was okay, but I don't want to go back again.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do. I mean, I teach grad school as an employee, right? I work with a nonprofit online school and foundation as an employee, but I also get to do a lot of entrepreneurial things. I get to bring ideas to the forefront and help craft what's happening in each of those roles. So it's very different than just being pigeonholed. So it's lovely.
And it sounds like it's very creative,
Yes, very
which I
creative.
suspect is very important for you.
Yes. David, this has been a really profound conversation for me. And I really appreciate you coming on and sharing. And like I said, everything happens when it's supposed to happen. So even though we had all of those, times we had to reschedule and different things going on, I'm very appreciative that you're here today, right now, offering us your wisdom, your story. And I would love to have more conversations with you.
Can I finish with two things that
Yes,
I like to leave,
yes,
if
yes,
that would
please.
be okay?
Oh, well, that's what I was going to ask.
Oh, sorry.
No,
Sorry to
that's
preempt
perfect.
you.
No.
So what I like to share with people, no matter how dark it is and how bad it seems, there is hope. There is light at the end of the tunnel. You might not be able to see it right now, but always know there is a solution to your challenge or problem. There always is hope. And the second piece I want, especially entrepreneurs, self-driven, do it on our own people that we are, is we can't do it alone. And especially when it comes to alcoholism and addiction, like the mind that got me to be an alcoholic is not the mind that could get me out of that. I had to work with other people who could reframe my thinking, point out new things or point out things that were obvious, but which I wasn't willing to admit. And so whether you find a peer group, like if you're an entrepreneur, whether you find a peer group, whether you find a mentor, whether you hire a coach like me, find someone that can help. That's really what I want to leave with your listeners.
Thank you. And of course, we'll have your website in the show notes, which has your services, your book, your blog, your videos, your phone number. I'm looking at your website on my screen. Your phone number and your email are right there for everybody. So I hope that everybody, who's listening or watching this episode is as moved as I am, and that you do take advantage of David's offer for that free consulting coaching session. And that if you really recognize yourself in his story or in my story, reach out to us, even if it's not about getting coaching or consulting, but just, we're here for you. So thank you so much. And thank you to everybody again for watching this episode or listening to it. I'll be back again with another amazing person to share their story, their journey, and some things that can help you on yours. Thanks for listening or watching to this episode of Your Brand Amplified. Don't forget to leave us a rating or review on your favorite podcast listening platform. And if you want to learn more, check us out at yourbrandamplified.com.